Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. I'm pleased to have this opportunity to close the debate on COP27 outcomes for Labour, because climate change is an issue that I am passionate about tackling. Like poverty, climate change is an issue of inequality, of injustice, which hits working class people hardest, and which is caused by political choices that benefit and have benefited the super rich. So, in closing for Labour today, it gives me the opportunity to summarise and to reiterate our position in this debate. But before I do so, I'd like to spend some time commenting on the Scottish Government's motion and on the amendment put forward by the Conservative Party. So, while I have to say I think it's a stretch too far to claim, as Gillian Martin seemed to, that there would be no outcomes from COP27 if Scotland's First Minister hadn't been there, there is much within the motion from the Government which Labour are supporting today. It's fair to say that the Loss and Damage Fund is an important step forward in tackling climate change and challenging the injustice of climate change. As my colleague Faisal Chowdhury highlighted, global inequality, the global inequality of how those whose economies have benefited most from fossil fuels have had relatively little impact compared to those whose resources have been exploited not just in the recent past but also throughout the long history of colonialism, as highlighted by my colleague Katie Clark. We see time and again that those who are most acutely impacted by the climate emergency have contributed the least to climate change. So it's right that we tackle this injustice, and it's right that we seek to address through the Loss and Damage Fund. Labour also supports within the Government's motion the sentiment around the phase down of unabated coal use and other fossil fuels, and to ensuring that human rights are fully respected, and to protect on human rights. Can I get the time back?
No, but
I'm afraid I'm not able to take the intervention. Sorry, Mark. And we also support the ambition of protecting 30% of land and seas by 2030, but targets are not enough when tackling the climate and nature emergencies. We need to see action, and we need to see delivery, as our amendment highlights. We will not be supporting the Tory amendment today because it removes crucial lines on the transition away from fossil fuels. That's not to say that there isn't that we don't support the sentiment, as we did with the Scottish Government motion around human rights and protecting human rights right across the world. And I was pleased to see that in the Conservative Party's amendment today. The Conservative Party, we've heard today from Liam Kerr, they say that they want a just transition like all of us want a just transition. But I suppose the question that I always have when I hear Conservative members speaking about a just transition is, a just transition for who? Will it be for ordinary workers and householders through a green industrial strategy that invests in public services, or are they talking about a just transition for private corporations, for oil multinationals seeking to protect their profits? I'm afraid I don't have time in hand. But as I've said, there is an element of the amendment that we support around protecting human rights across the world, and there have been elements from today's debate which we would support, thinking back to comments from Graham Simpson around having lower bus fares for all, dualling train tracks, and I think I'm sure he'll correct me if I'm wrong, I think I heard him propose that we offer free ferry travel to under 22s who live on the islands. These kind of investments into our communities, in public services, are things that Labour support and that we'd like to see more of. I'd be interested to hear if their colleagues in Westminster will support these kind of proposals. In my final minute, I'd like to move to Labour's amendment. So we have taken the decision to support the Government's motion and to add an amendment of our own on the end. And I hope the government will be able to support our amendment, because I think it's important that we have on the record an acknowledgement that we are not in Scotland currently meeting our own annual targets to cut emissions, despite the fact that we're very well placed to do so. If we had a socialist Green New Deal that used every lever to redistribute wealth through job creation in a suite of new public services, we could drastically reduce our emissions in this country. A public energy company which would generate renewable energy would also provide a low cost to consumers and sectoral collective bargaining for workers. Likewise, council-run bus companies would lower the cost to consumers and improve workers' rights to the workers involved. We have heard often from the government that these kind of policies are not possible because of the fixed budget. I think we heard this argument crumble.
Ms Vialba, you've got 5 seconds left.
Okay. I think basically it's not good enough for the government to say that we don't have the power or the wealth or the skills. We have all of those things. The only thing we don't have is a government with the socialist ambition to redistribute wealth and power. So that's why we need a workers' economy, which only Labour in government can deliver.
Thank you very much.